Has the market changed its mind about what the Fed may do next?
We have got to get inflation behind us. I wish there were a painless way to do that. There isn't.
Think of that number, and maybe more importantly, what do you think the Fed's going to do, and therefore what your equity is going to do?
I've been saying over and over again to my colleagues here that he wants your portfolio down so that you won't be able to spend as much.
Okay, welcome to Financial Stockholm this happy Monday, the October 10th, and hope you've had a good weekend. I'm Christopher Crystal with Financial Stockholm, and these are our thoughts on what we're seeing in the market. And things do not look good. We've seen an escalation of tensions and actions in the Ukraine crisis, and what's happening there with the war, and what the possible reactions will be or actions afterwards. And the issues surrounding it continue to get complicated. So, if we look at what happened on Friday, we did have a meeting in Prague with the EU to determine what they're doing with Russian gas and if they're going to cap it. They were not able to come to a conclusion, of course, and they'll be going to another meeting later in this month to resolve issues on price capping and where they're going to get gas and if there will be a cap on the Russian gas, and which puts them again in this difficult scenario where if you don't pay Russia, they won't supply the gas. And maybe they don't want to pay the price that the market is demanding, but they're really out of luck because the power generation is in Germany, and Italy doesn't have a lot of power to generate for the rest of Europe. But if the Italian economy craters and crashes because they have no power, then we're all in it together. So we'll see how that develops. But what you do have is a very clear statement from European governments telling people that they're in a pre-war condition for energy, and that there will be cutbacks and there will be periods of darkness or periods of blackouts or freeze-outs, as I like to call them, because we're in the winter. And they're telling you this very clearly, this is going to happen. They're also marching us closer and closer to a nuclear war. Putin has talked about nuclear. Zelensky has talked about nuclear. He's tweeted about it. And you see the United States response on nuclear. So nuclear is on the table, and this is insanity. This is not a winnable or really a favorable event. And what surprises me is you don't see more of these eco warriors getting out there in front of this and saying, hey, we need to move to a solution that doesn't involve war. This is an ecological disaster and will be the worst that we've seen. So if you think climate change is bad now, wait till you get climate change after a nuclear war. And that is not good. You do have the governments telling you about this nuclear proposal and telling you that this is a likely event. You even see the Health and Human Services in the United States publishing that they're buying anti-radiation poisoning treatment pills, and that was to the tune of 300 million. How that would be distributed or in time of need is beyond me, but you already have had where you have media publishing in New York City talking about what to do in the event of a nuclear attack, how to survive a nuclear event. And if New York gets hit with a nuclear bomb, I don't think there'll be much of Manhattan left. So I'm not sure, and with the blast effect, what the effect would be to run into your apartment and close your doors. But I'm not in the government, so I can't tell you. But this is moving closer and closer towards a nuclear conflict, and the governments are telling you that this is a strong likelihood. So whether Nordstream was done by the United States to cut off Europe from Russian gas, or whether Putin blew it up so that there was no resolution and this would be a means for him to create an attack, it really doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, it's looking like nuclear attack is on the table from both sides. And to make matters worse for us here in Sweden, we have the Swedish secret list of what communes or how the action will be planned for the freeze-outs coming. And this will involve shutting down one of our nuclear reactors, which is not good for our power needs, and saying that this will happen and there will be 36-hour periods and so forth. So the question really comes down to, when do the governments continue to work as they should or function, and when do the people start to take to the streets? And You hear a lot of talk in Iran about the people taking to the streets and starting to make a change. So how long would that take in Europe? You've already seen protests occurring over electricity bills. And what happens when companies are shutting down production lines and not able to produce goods that would be bought and sold? So you saw BASF had an 800 million charge. You see the tech industry or the semiconductor industry warning of a slowing down. We already saw that OPEC was cutting production. And while most people think this is money going into the governments of those regions, it is, but they're operating on economic principles of profit and loss. And if you don't think that they have economists from the top schools in the world advising them on how much production to have in order to maintain prices, then you're not understanding what's going on here. This is a supply and demand issue. As the GDP shrinks, the amount of oil produced will be less. As the GDP grows, the amount of oil produced will be more. And this is something that's, if you want to take an historic basis, that's how it's responded and acted. And so really what it is get ready for war. So how would your portfolio benefit if that's the scenario? Well, obviously, the companies that are going to be involved in war are the defense technologies, everything from Navy and shipping and atomic submarines, tanks and missiles would get increased orders, or the majority of the orders. You would have drone orders going up, drone supply, that what's included in that. You would have internet security, power production, pipeline production, pharmaceuticals. If you're using an Amgen product to treat your radiation, they're going to be in high gear. And then therefore you'll have cancer events occurring more frequently. And while we've made advances in cancer treatment and survivor rate, the pharmaceuticals will benefit. So if you're looking at international companies, who benefits there? Well, the healthcare companies, especially in the US, the healthcare insurance companies. You need to look at grid infrastructure, the ones that are involved in the reinvestment and the build out of the grid. For instance, we were just talking about Spain. Would Spain be able to sell the rest of Europe? There are only 2 pipelines going into France currently. They would have to build out a third. And then you have the adding to this mixture would be the desire to switch away from these products. So Michael Bloomberg is investing 85 million. Now that's less than what he put into his presidential campaign. But he's moved to a status where he wants to see it eliminated by 2030. And he wants to have old coal plants in the United States eliminated. I don't know what he's doing for Indonesia, but I'm sure they're on the table. But the most difficult part to this scenario is, what is the solution to the energy issue? Solar isn't working well enough that it can supply all of Europe. Wind is not working well enough to supply all of Europe. So you're going to need to have something like a hydrogen green gas. You're going to have a natural gas, and you're going to have nuclear, and then you're of course going to have continued oil. So which of these mixtures, or is there a new one? Is there a fusion plant? Is there something that we don't know about that's being built in the next 3 years? And that's the timeline you have to look out for this energy issue, as a minimum of 3 years of hard times. And then does it get better? Well, who knows? So on the oil side, of course, you have the rigs, the oil shippers, the oil production, the refining. And so this goes back into that OPEC plus cutting production and how that's going to be treated. You also have the gas issues are still fairly unresolved. I mean, we've seen some pipeline developments, but those have been well in the making for years. You cannot just build a pipeline tomorrow and have it working the day after. It takes some time. So again, if you look at the global GDP and you look at what OPEC plus is doing, this is really an indication of where the GDP is headed and the times that are coming for the economies of Europe and the rest of the world. You look at the starvation issue ongoing in Africa as a result of the war. You have a lot of unrest that looks like it's about to occur. So again, if you move past the oil and you move past those other industries, you could look at the foods and daily goods. These will see a lot of price volatility, and you'll see a lot of trading in there. the production of the foods and so forth. So, you're also going to move to alternative assets and commodities. So what would do well there? Well, you're looking at the dollar, which is going to benefit from the rate hikes. And you have those inflation troubles continuing. You saw the strong enough job support in the US, which will add to that. And then you see that so where else would you look? Well, the Norwegian kroner is tied to oil, and oil is still tied to dollar. So the Norwegian kroner would be one to take a look at. You're obviously going to look at the dollar. And so really what it comes down to is, can you survive as an individual stock picker, or would you survive in a portfolio basis, and how would you structure your portfolio? So we already had Anders Hagland on to talk about how he's doing his trading, which would identify the kind of single stock scenario for you. But there's another company out there called Simalgo, and we'll put up the contact details so you can research them for your own needs. And then of course you have the brokerage services offered. But what the Simalgo product is a way to optimize your portfolio. And so it's all the tools that we're using in the financial industry, like a Bloomberg or a Morningstar, which are considered by many too expensive to use. And Reuters, of course, offers systems as well. There are many you can choose from, and the institutions are using. But the Simalgo would work on a institutional and a retail basis, where you could optimize your portfolio. You could run through different scenarios. You could do this with an advisor, or you could do it yourself. That would really be up to you, but we'll include those contacts. And we look to have more people like Anders on shortly. And of course, Andre, we may have in the coming days or the coming week to discuss all of this and what the individual investors should be doing or could be doing. And so we're not giving out advice. We're just telling you, we're going to wish you a great day from Financial Stockholm, and hope your ventures in the market are successful. So with that, we'll see you tomorrow. Thank you very much. Bye.